everybody. Welcome. I'm going to wait a minute for some people to jump on. Getting some people on here. We're going to talk about sort of my journey with health and nutrition and diet and all that fun stuff. Might get a little detailed. We're going to talk about poop a bit, but I promise I won't get gross. It's just part of all this stuff. Alright, we got some people on here. Go ahead and share this, guys, if you know anyone that's dealing with digestion issues that might benefit from hearing about what I'm going to talk about today, because I've sort of been through it all. Not all, but a lot. Alright. I'm going to flip the camera around and start chatting. Thank you for inviting followers. Hey guys, so for those who don't know me or haven't seen one of my scopes, welcome. My name's Carly, or Coach Carly. I'm here in the Portland, Oregon area. And what I do, I'm a nutrition and health and fitness coach. So I help people feel better about their bodies and reach their goals and just help them live healthy, happy lives. So that's what I'm all about. And I wanted today, I was a little nervous about making this broadcast, sorry. Porkland. Oh, that's awesome. I love pork. So, oh, thanks. I'm glad you liked the spaghetti squash video. I'm so glad you watched it and found that helpful. I did post the recipe on my Instagram if you want to go follow that and find it. So today I was nervous about making this broadcast, this scope, talking about nutrition and digestion. It's just kind of personal, talking about what I've been through. But I know it can benefit a lot of people, and that's what I'm here for. So I'm going to get real and raw and kind of talk about it all with you guys to help you out. So a little background on me. I was not the fitness health girl growing up at all. I was not the athletic type. That was my sister. She was the gymnast and the cheerleader and the diver. She did swimming, and I did some horseback riding, but that's about it. I wasn't into team sports. I wasn't into working out. I always struggled with my weight and body issues, once I hit my teens. We'll talk some more about some nutrition stuff, but if you can bear with me, I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and my journey. So, that was never really me, and so I always struggled with it. And then after college, in college, I had a lot of issues with my digestion. I struggled with really bad constipation. Clearly you're still struggling. That's nice. Alright, so I had really bad digestion because I was eating a really bad diet. And, it's college, so I was living off of, Top Ramen and cereal and making ice cream sundaes every Friday night with, peanut butter and brownie and caramel sauce and all that good stuff. And I wondered why I didn't feel good. So that was sort of my first sign that something wasn't going well, was severe constipation. We're talking once a week kind of thing. So I started to get my nutrition on track a little bit. Thank you for the hearts. I don't know if anyone else is commiserating with me. I know poop's a weird thing to talk about, and people get really squeamish about it, but most Americans struggle with their digestion, and it's a real issue and something we need to talk about more. So that's why I'm making this scope, and if you don't like it, that's fine. You don't have to watch, but I'm here to help. So thank you for those hearts, guys. So I went to the doctor and told them about my issues, and, they got me set up on that sort of standard American idea of bumping up the fiber. So it was all about whole grains, cutting out the processed grains, and I was literally putting, Benefiber powder in and on everything that I ate and drank. Because apparently fiber is the be-all, end-all of having good poops. And, it helped a little bit, for sure, and just, I think, making that change from eating, white bread and really processed grains to whole grains, just, it was less processed food, so that made a difference. Hold on, water. Yes, I don't eat grains anymore, so I will get to that part. And, I don't like to say any food's good or bad or evil or, anything like that. It all depends on you and what works for you. But so I started on that path, and it helped, but I still really struggled with my weight. I tried traditional dieting, and it didn't work for me. I'd count calories, and I'd do low fat. I did Weight Watchers, and, I had some success with that to start with, and then I just sort of hit this huge plateau and this huge roadblock where I couldn't lose any more weight unless I wanted to just, eat a lot less food, and I wasn't happy with that. If you know me at all, I get really hangry, or used to especially, and you didn't want to be around me if I was hungry, and I just really didn't like the idea of restricting myself even further. I think that we get really caught up in this diet industry of not eating, it's all about less is more, restrict calories, restrict fat, restrict carbs. There's all these different approaches that are all about restriction, and I was getting really sick of restricting and feeling deprived and hungry and not feeling better and not seeing any results with my weight and my body fat. So I was frustrated, and that's when my mom introduced me to paleo. She'd actually been doing it for about a year at that point, and this is about 3 years ago now. And I thought she was crazy at first, and I know a lot of people hear paleo and they're like, what? Whole grains are healthy. Shouldn't I be eating lots of whole grains? And what do you mean fat's okay and I can eat eggs every day? And all of that stuff. And, a lot of the traditional wisdom we've been instilled with from, the government and our nutrition training in school is with the food pyramid is this basis of grains. And it's really, stemming from the agriculture industry and faulty science. All this stuff about saturated fat being bad for you is coming from, a study that was done, and the guy took just bits and pieces of the information that he wanted to use to make it look like saturated fat was correlated to heart disease, and all of a sudden cholesterol and saturated fat are evil, and everything we were taught is reflective of that, and it wasn't actually really true. So anyway, my mom got me started on paleo because I was just frustrated with everything else not working, and I decided I would kind of try it, and I'm definitely a facts and figures type of girl. So I read 5 books about paleo diet and had to know what this thing was all about. And when I started reading about it, it all just sort of clicked. I had one of those moments. It was like, oh, yeah, paleo is amazing. So I was just like, oh, so basically I'm eating real whole foods that our bodies are designed to eat. Yeah, exactly. It's they act like this is new, but the way the paleo diet is based is off of our, how we evolved and adapted to eat. And all these grains are very, very new in our diet in terms of the history of the human race and how long it's been around. It's this tiny little fraction of this huge span of time that humans have been around that we've been having agriculture and grains. And in the last, 100 years, it's even gotten worse in terms of GMO and the amount of, the way we've bred wheat to be especially resilient, which means that it's even harder for us to digest. So, it's become a bit of an epidemic of all these people having gluten issues, and it has a lot to do with how our grains have been bred, and wheat especially, and how much of it we're consuming. So anyway, I was reading all these books, and I was like, okay, yeah, this actually makes sense. You want me to eat vegetables. You want me to eat meat. You want me to eat these foods that were always available to humans, that we always consumed. We didn't used to count calories back in the Stone Age when we were living in caves. It was you ate what was available to you, and that was the meat that you hunted and the foods that you gathered. And you didn't worry about it because it was real whole foods, and it was things that we could digest because that's what we'd adapted to eat. So I started to cut out grains and legumes and processed foods and a lot of refined sugars and things like that, and went paleo, and I loved the way I felt. It was this amazing transformation of being overwhelmed with cravings, especially for carbs. Also, just so you guys know, I used to be a pastry chef. So before I got into all this health and fitness stuff, I was in a bakery every single day, surrounded by sugar and eating it. So I had serious sugar cravings and a sugar addiction. And when I switched to paleo and stopped eating all that stuff, yeah, someone can relate to that. Sugar is legitimately addictive. And if you don't believe me, yeah, yeah, I mean, so I was surrounded by it all the time. So you can imagine how hard it is to beat an addiction. It's like being an alcoholic, but being a bartender. Hey, Aldi, thanks for joining. So I was feeling so much better. My energy levels were much improved. My cravings were getting better. My digestion was improving. You know, I still struggled with digestive issues up to that point, eating grains, and that was getting better too. So all of that was really great for me, and I've been paleo, like I said, about 3 years now, and I've never looked back. I've never considered going back to eating the traditional standard American diet. There's no wheat flour or white sugar in my pantry, I can show you. I just don't have that around, I don't use it. So that was all great, and I felt better. And then this happens a lot with people who are paleo, because what happens is that when you switch to eating real whole foods and your body is able to, you know, deal with some of the issues, the chronic issues that you probably didn't even know you were having, like inflammation, digestive distress, things like that, when those start getting better because you're eating better foods, sometimes you become aware of other issues that have been going on that were sort of masked by these bigger issues. So for me, I started noticing, you know, I had sort of irregular digestion, where it was sort of like on the other end of constipation, if you know what I mean, sort of the opposite side of things. I was dealing with that a bit. Some unexplained bloating that I was like not sure what was causing it, where I'd get this distended stomach that looked like I was 4 months pregnant. You know, gaining some weight back, different things like that. So I started to see a naturopath to kind of figure out what was going on. And in case you can't see this, I do have a scar here. This is from thyroid surgery that I had back in 2007. So I had a lump on my thyroid that we found, and it wasn't cancerous. It was just what they call a hot nodule, which basically means it was overproducing thyroid hormones. So I ended up getting that removed, and with it lost half my thyroid gland, which if you don't know much about, it produces thyroid hormones that have a lot to do with regulating all sorts of systems in your body. Metabolism, helps, you know, regulate body temperature, things like that. So it's a really important gland, and it's really important to have those hormones in check. So I've been taking supplemental hormones ever since I had the surgery, and I ended up, when I went to the naturopath, she retested my hormones and found out that they were sort of out of balance. It's really important with thyroid stuff that you are getting all three. There's 3 thyroid hormones. There's TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. There's T4 and T3, and you need to have all 3 of those tested. My doctor, my traditional doctor, was just testing, I think, TSH, and that was in a normal range, which, by the way, is quite broad. And when we did the full test with my naturopath, found out that I believe it was my T3 was quite low, and T3 is converted from T4, so basically I was making T4 because my TSH, my thyroid stimulating hormone, was fine. So I was making T4, but it wasn't converting to T3, which is what's usable in the body. So I wasn't really getting the benefits of it. So we changed my thyroid medication. That was step 1. So here's my journey from the past year and a half of what I've been going through with all this. So step 1 was getting my thyroid figured out. So that was great. So that was a little better. I also decided to get off the birth control pill. I'd been on it for 7 years. And after doing a lot of reading and trying to get to a more natural and holistic approach with my health, not just nutrition, but other things as well, I decided I didn't want to be on that anymore, because I didn't like the idea of giving my body a synthetic hormone that, you know, I was becoming dependent on, and actually it can do a lot of issues with your gut health being on the birth control pill, so it's worth looking into and reading up on. So I just decided for me that it was something I didn't want to have in my body anymore, and decided to go off that. And oh my gosh, did that throw my body for a loop. You can imagine 7 years being dependent on this estrogen, progesterone pill, and suddenly taking it out. My body was like, whoa, I don't know what to do. I have to make these hormones myself now? I don't know how to do this. So what ended up happening was I had, messed up menstrual things going on. My poor boobs, sorry, I have to talk about this stuff, right, were so swollen and painful. And then I put on weight, and then I got really tired. And it was like this really weird thing where I was just exhausted. And so I ended up going back to my naturopath to get all of my hormones, do a saliva hormone test. So you spit into these little tubes throughout the day, and then they measure your different hormones. So it's your sex hormones, that's, progesterone and estrogen, and then that's also your adrenals, so like cortisol, which controls your adrenals. You just did that test. Did you get interesting results from that? So I found out when I did it that I had adrenal fatigue, and that my progesterone was pretty much non-existent in my body. So I was dealing with estrogen dominance. You had high cortisol. So that sometimes is sort of like the first phase of adrenal fatigue, where you're boosting your cortisol, and then sometimes you crash after that. So I'm not sure what protocol you're doing or what your doctor's having you do, but my cortisol was quite low across the board. So basically that was, and a lot of that had to do with, it's the same pathway that's used to synthesize progesterone as it is to synthesize cortisol. So what happens is I took away the pill. My body all of a sudden needed to make all that progesterone that I was getting from the pill. And so in order to try to make up for that, the progesterone it was making, my cortisol was getting really low because it's synthesized from the same cholesterol. So basically, everything was out of whack, and it explained why I was super tired with adrenal fatigue. Lots of it has to do with just this chronic fatigue that you just kind of can't break through. It would be like, mid-afternoon, and I literally, I'd be at work, and I'd just have to sit down because I was so exhausted. So that was really interesting. So needless to say, we had to start addressing that. So I started taking an adrenal complex and some B vitamins. Yeah, and I was compounding progesterone, so it's like a pill that you're taking. I actually was given a progesterone cream to start using to get my progesterone levels up. So that was the other part of it. So I was supporting my adrenals. It's a pill, okay. There are different approaches to it. So I was supporting my adrenals with the supplements, and then I was also taking the progesterone cream. So that was good, and I started to feel better, but I was still dealing with digestive issues. So bloating, I wish I could show you a picture of my belly because I literally could look pregnant, and I couldn't pinpoint what exactly was causing it. We had already done a food allergy test. This was one of the early steps of things I did with my naturopath, was getting a food allergy test, getting my blood drawn and getting that tested. And the only thing that came back on the food allergy test was dairy, which I always suspected I had an issue with. Most people do have an issue with dairy. Mine was a true intolerance, and it wasn't just to lactose. A lot of people think dairy means a lactose intolerance, which is the sugar in dairy. But a lot of people actually have intolerances to the proteins in dairy, which was my case. So things like whey and casein were giving me the most issue. And it was really interesting when I found out about this test with the dairy intolerance. My naturopath had me cut out all forms of dairy, including butter, for 2 months to see how I felt. And I had eczema my entire life, and it went away. It's crazy how food can affect you in different ways. We assume that if we eat something and we don't have digestive issues in terms of getting, sick, or maybe our throat closes up, or we get, a rash on our tongue, or we have diarrhea, or something like that, we assume that it's okay. But there's so many different ways that food can affect your body. And it can be this whole systemic thing. So I found out that dairy my whole life, and it's funny because when I was little, I used to vomit from eating dairy. It was just bad. And I think I just made myself keep eating it, and eventually learned to live with it. But I had this eczema when I was younger where I would literally chew on my hands in my sleep because it itched so badly. I don't know who's giving me the hearts, but I'd love to hear if you have some similar experience with this. So my eczema cleared up. Something I'd had my entire life was gone because I cut out dairy. So I'm not eating dairy anymore. No, I would much rather feel better. You have Hashimoto's. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm lucky I don't, but I do still have, the low thyroid just because I'm missing part of my gland. So anyway, that just goes to show there are different ways that food can affect you, and that's why I always recommend cutting things out for a while to see when you reintroduce them what they do to you. So anyway, I'd figured out the dairy thing, but I was still having this bloating issue. And so we ended up doing, this was a few months ago, doing a stool test, which that's fun, not. Let me just say, I hope you never have to get that up close and personal with your poop. But it was worth it, to get things tested. Basically, that checks for, like, pathogens. It checks for yeast overgrowth, like candida. It checks to make sure that your enzymes, like your pancreatic enzymes for digestion, are all on track, things like that. And all that came back pretty normal. So, that was kind of discouraging, because when you start doing these tests, it's like you really want an answer. What is a stool test? Is that what you're asking? It's checking your poop. So you have to actually, like, collect samples of your poop for 3 days and then send it into a lab. Yeah. Worst experience of my life. But you know what? It's worth it for my health. I do this for you guys, right? So you can know and learn from me. So I did that, and everything was pretty normal. It's okay. So I was sort of at my wit's end. I was like, what can be going on here? There's something going on. Like, I ate, something the other day that made me look pregnant. And so finally, after all this, like, we'd kind of run the gamut of tests of what could be going on. My naturopath said this last thing we needed to test for was SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And she said, if this doesn't come back positive, like, I kind of don't know where to go from here. So it was kind of like our last-ditch effort to get an answer to what was going on. So SIBO, the symptoms of that tend to be bloating, like belly distension. Bloating, is usually correlated with, like, gas, but it's actually like a distended stomach, like belly and stomach, that comes with SIBO. And it's like IBS symptoms. That happened to me yesterday, super bloated. I woke up from pain. Yeah, so, I'm sorry. Yeah, it could be something like this, or it could be a food intolerance. I don't know if you've had an allergy test done or not. But, so SIBO, there's IBS symptoms. So people, maybe you have chronic diarrhea, maybe you have chronic constipation, or you can have something called a mixed type, which is kind of like alternating between the two, where it's like you might have diarrhea one day and then go 4 days and have a hard time going the next time, or it can even be like you're having diarrhea, but you're only having diarrhea like twice a week. So like you're having loose stools, but you're only going a couple times a week, or it can be like you're having hard to pass stools, but you're having them every day. So it's like very mixed, and that was sort of more of what I was dealing with. And so the test that's involved with this, it's pretty new. I need to find a naturopath here. Yeah, you really should. It's kind of amazing. Naturopaths really find the root cause of your issues versus, I feel like, general doctors, and this isn't true for all of them, and I'm not trying to bash on doctors, but I feel like general practitioners tend to treat the symptoms versus figuring out the root cause and solving that. So, it's like all my life I was getting cortisone cream to put on my rashes versus figuring out what was causing the rashes. It's like eczema is often it's a systemic inflammation sort of thing. It's often caused by something in your environment or in your diet. And so the fact that they're just treating the rash, yes, it's like a Band-Aid. It's like, if you have bad stomach acid and you're getting acid indigestion and they have you take Prilosec or something like that helps with the acid reduction, well, that's great until you eat that food that caused it the next time and then you get sick again. Like, you shouldn't be taking a medicine every single day to deal with the symptom versus figuring out the cause of that symptom. So I don't even remember what I was talking about before this. But with SIBO, the tests for that, what's involved is you have to do a prep diet that eliminates all carbohydrates. So basically you eat just meat and fat, just protein and fat for 1 to 2 days, depending on what your diet was already like beforehand. And then for the test, you drink this sugar solution, and then it's called lactulose. That's some sort of sugar cane. You drink it, it's orange, it's really sweet and gross. And then you have these little vials, and you take breath samples every 20 minutes for 3 hours, so it's quite extensive. And basically what it's looking for is methane and hydrogen gases that are produced by the bacteria in your small intestine. And this test is pretty cool. It's fairly new. There's actually a SIBO center here in Portland where I am, and the doctor who's come up with a lot of this stuff's right here in Portland, so that's pretty cool. And the reason why it's taken a while to figure out a good way to test for this is that if you do like an endoscopy going down your throat, you can only get the top section of your small intestines. And if you did a colonoscopy and went up the other end, you only get the bottom half, and you don't really get the middle of the small intestine. It's really hard to see what's going on in there. So this lactulose breath test is the best way to measure if there's an overgrowth, because the bacteria in your gut are going to be producing methane and hydrogen gases when you feed them that sugar, because they feed off of sugar, and that's what makes them overgrow. So, and there's basically no such thing as a false positive with this test, so if it comes back positive, you have SIBO. You can have a false negative, and it doesn't necessarily mean if you get a negative that you don't have SIBO, but I got my test results back, and lo and behold, I have SIBO. So, it was one of those things where it's like, you have relief because you know what's going on, and then you're also like, so upset because it means you have to treat it. And the diet for this is pretty strict. So the diet that Dr. Seebecker, who's the doctor here in Portland at the SIBO Center, has come up with is a combination of SCD, which is the specific carbohydrate diet, which basically eliminates starches. So like no sweet potatoes or regular potatoes, no plantains or taro or yucca or any of those roots, no grains either, of course. And the only beans you can have, I think, are lentils, but I don't eat those anyway. And then it's also a combination of the low FODMAP diet, and FODMAPs, I always try to remember this, stands for fermentable oligo mono and disaccharides and polyols. So it's certain sugar chains that are in foods, and they're in what would normally be quite healthy foods, again, so I'm cutting out things like onions and garlic. Yeah, I don't know what that face is for the acronym or for the things I'm cutting out, but no onions, no garlic, no apples, no peaches, no avocados, things that I normally love to eat. Like usually my breakfast would be like sweet potatoes, eggs, and avocado and sweet potatoes were like off the table. So I have very specific food groups of what I can eat. So I am about 2 weeks into that diet, and I'm actually feeling really great. I'm also taking herbal antibiotics to treat the bacterial overgrowth, and then from there, after a month of this diet, I'm going to go back to my naturopath and sort of assess where we're at and see if I can reintroduce things or not. It really depends. I don't think my case was super bad. Some people have it so bad where they have to be on this diet for years. I'm hoping that's not the case for me. I can't have chocolate. I don't want to cry. But anyway, that was sort of a long-winded story, and thank you for those of you who have stayed on and watched about sort of what I've been through with my health and digestion. And basically, what I'm here for as a health coach is to try to, thank you for the sympathy. I kind of choose to go through all this in the sense that, I want to feel as good as I can. Typical day's meals. One sec, I'll get back to that. I want to feel as good as I can, and some people might have been fine with dealing with this bloating and just been like, whatever, this just happens on occasion, I'll just live with it. Thank you. I'm so glad that you're appreciating this. That's why I have to share it. It's awkward and personal, but I want to help people. So, I really wanted to get to the root cause of this, and so I've chosen to go through all this testing. And a lot of people, it's usually as simple as they have a food intolerance and they cut out that one or two or a few foods and they feel so much better and they're good to go. And other people have more issues. I think my chronic constipation in my teens is probably what caused the SIBO, because if things are not moving, the motility in your gut isn't going well, then things get backed up. Basically, SIBO happens when bacteria from your colon and your large intestine go back up into the small intestine where they don't belong. And then they end up fermenting your foods in there, and that's what causes the bloat. So typical day's meals for me right now is I'll do, remember this pain so you don't do it again. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I had to do that when I had sugary things, and I'd eat a treat, and I'd eat like a donut, and I'd feel so awful, and then it's like the next time there was a donut in front of my face, I'd have to be like, do you really want this? Do you remember how you felt last time you ate one of these? And it's hard, but, so typical day's meals for me right now are usually I have a couple eggs, maybe some other meat, like I'm making my own homemade breakfast sausages that doesn't have any onion or garlic powder in it, so I'm doing my own breakfast sausage blend. You could do any leftover meat. I think it's really important to have protein in the morning to help satiate you and keep you going. And then I'm usually doing some like fruit, like strawberries have been in season, so I've been eating a lot of those. Usually I would do lamb rack. I know, I'm so excited to eat those. Never had lamb ribs, and they sound so good. She's referring to my post on Instagram if you guys follow me over there. So, yeah, I'll usually have like eggs and some meat and fruit, maybe some leftover veggies from the night before, or I'll scramble some veggies into my eggs. Lunch I usually do, right now I'm doing like a smoothie with fruit, like banana, coconut milk, full-fat coconut milk, some collagen powder for some protein. And then dinner is usually just lots of veggies and meat. I tend to do like, I buy ground meat a lot because it's less expensive to buy good quality ground meat, so I'll make, I made like a spaghetti squash casserole the other night. I'll make just like burger patties, I do pork chops or chicken, just basically meat and veggies right now, because that's what I can have, and then after dinner I'll have some more fruit, because that's basically all the carbs I can have right now is fruit. I wouldn't normally eat like 5 servings of fruit in a day, but that's all the carbs I have right now, so I'm doing it. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at right now. As a health coach, guys, like I'm not here to help to diagnose anything. I'm not a doctor. I want you to work with maybe like a naturopath or something, but I am here to give you your keto meal plan. Yeah, I could easily do this diet ketogenic. I just know that I do a little better with carbs personally, so I'm trying to keep my carb levels pretty moderate. So I'm here to help make things easier for you and simplify them. So if you are struggling with weight loss and feel like you've tried all the different diets out there and have been counting calories and are sick of it, I'm here to help you with that. I want you to eat a balanced, healthy diet and make it as easy as possible. If you're dealing with something like having to do low FODMAP or specific carbohydrate, or just plain gluten-free, maybe you want to try paleo and you've never tried paleo before, that's what I'm here for, is to help simplify that. And then I do fitness as well, so I can help you figure out that sort of stuff too. But basically I just want you to get healthy and be happy and live your best life. So thank you so much for those hearts, you guys. That makes me feel so great. So yeah, I will flip the camera around and show you my contact info again. I really suggest you follow me on Instagram. I post several times on there a day, and I'll post recipes and a lot of pictures of my meals, of what I'm eating, so you can see them. And I do some workout moves every once in a while too, just so you can see what I'm up to. Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate you watching and commenting and interacting. So here, I'll flip this around real quick. So my Instagram handle, if you can read that, is CarlyS629. Thank you, Rhonda. I really appreciate you being here. Aldi, you're the sweetest. And then that's my email address, coachcarlysullivan@gmail.com. If you want to just pop me an email and chat about stuff, I'm happy to do that anytime. New home is great. I'm really loving it. It just feels like home already. We're getting settled in. I love my kitchen. I actually have room for to move my elbows when I chop things and don't push things off the counter in the meantime. Actually, I'll flip it. There's my new gas stove. Yay! And then my best part is my pantry. It's huge and I'm in love. And maybe I'll do a scope if you guys are interested. Yeah, thanks. Of what's in my pantry, if you guys want to see something like that and see what I keep in my fridge or in my cupboards, because I know some people just want to know what to stock their food with. Lots of hearts. Okay, I'll have to do that. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me, you guys. Yeah, the pantry, someone joked that someone could, live in there. It's so big. It's, my pride and joy. I love it. I'm a food-obsessed person. Such a foodie, so, yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to just chat at any point, talk to you about what you're dealing with, and see if I can offer anything to help. Awesome. Yeah, please drop me an email. I'm totally here just to, help you out. That would be great to live in my pantry. Maybe if my boyfriend's bad some night, I'll make him live in there. But then he'll have food to eat, so that's not really fair. Anyway, I've rambled on for quite a while. I really appreciate those of you who are on here. I really hope you found it helpful. If you ever have any questions about, dietary stuff, I'm happy to talk about it. Follow me on Instagram. Share this. So that people can watch it. I will have a replay up. So, alright guys, have a great night. I love you all. Thanks for all the hearts, and I will see you soon. Bye.